Hi, my name is Justin, and today I will be giving my presentation on election fraud claims by Donald Trump. And I wanted to specifically look at his supporters, because a lot of his supporters are also arguing that there is election fraud. And I wanted to see what it would take specifically to convince these people that the election was actually valid, and what it would take for them to accept the election results. So, just to start off, some obvious observations that I've made. These people tend to be Republicans. They tend to be conservative, Trump-supporting people. You don't have a lot of Democrats who are liberals who are going around arguing that there's a bunch of voter fraud. No, these are people who are Republicans who did not win the election, who are trying to overturn the election results. And they're trying to bring up the fact that there was widespread voter fraud. So we know that there's these people, and we also know that in the past there have been peaceful transitions of power consistently throughout our entire country's history. So you've got every other president or presidential candidate, I should say, who has lost the election has ended up conceding. And right now we're kind of in a unique situation, because even though people bring up the 2000 election with Al Gore not conceding at first, we do know that he eventually did concede the election. And right now our unique situation is that we don't see in the foreseeable future Donald Trump conceding this election. So that is something that is a little unique to this specific period of time. Another thing to note is that a lot of these people who do trust Donald Trump, they do tend to believe in voter fraud, which that does obviously make sense, because if you think about it, as a child, you would believe your parents because they are a figure that is over you. A lot of people view Donald Trump as our president and as the leader of the Republican Party. He's a very respected figure. So to have him say that the elections were fraudulent would definitely bring to light a lot of these people who are following Donald Trump also saying that the election is fraudulent. So with all that, I'm going to share my personal feelings on this for a second. I tend to not side with the people who are saying that there's a lot of voter fraud. I tend to believe that the elections were conducted properly and that the election results are legitimate. So I did post out there on Facebook, and my quote here, I'm going to just read it off. To my Republican friends, I respect all of you too much to remain quiet on this issue. If there were any issues of voter fraud, that would be horrendous and cause for thorough investigation. However, the evidence is not there. I respect everyone's right to believe what they will. However, I would encourage my good Republican friends to reconsider their position on this issue. Please know we are still friends, even though I strongly disagree on this particular issue. So I posted that just probably about a month ago, when the voter fraud claims were at its peak. I had a lot of responses to this post. I had one friend who left a laughing emoji on my post, and for me, I was a little bit offended. I'm not horribly offended though. Obviously, if somebody's laughing at something that you tend to believe in, then that is kind of a little bit offensive, but I do understand, because that person's obviously very passionate about this issue, and they obviously definitely disagree with me, even though they're a good friend. Another person, they shared a lot of videos on my post. And a lot of these videos were evidence of voter fraud, basically. And you know, as I watched these, I've noticed throughout the last month that none of these instances have seemed to materialize, because if they did, I believe they would have been used by the Trump legal team to help overturn our election. So they must not have materialized, or they must not have been convincing enough. But it's understandable somebody watching those sort of videos how if they believe that Trump is a good person, that he's trustworthy, and that there's actually voter fraud, there's your evidence. And they were very convincing videos, and so I can see why people would believe that this election is a hoax. So even though the evidence may not be there, there are a lot of these videos out there. So now we know why people believed that the election was fraudulent and how there was a lot of widespread voter fraud. But what we don't know is what it would take for them to change their minds about this issue. So another one of my Facebook friends, they posted out an interesting thing. Basically, to paraphrase, it said, what would it take for you to accept the election results? So this was a really good question, and I was really hoping somebody would ask this, because this was basically what I'm trying to figure out with this presentation, is what would it take for them to be convinced that the election results are legitimate. I noticed there were 87 comments. 87 comments. So this was a pretty big thread going on here, and a lot of them said we want the fraud to stop. So that could be a little ambiguous, but they basically want to believe that there is no voter fraud out there. And you know, so then the question becomes, what would it take for them to believe that there's no voter fraud? And really, there's not a really good answer for that, because a lot of these people are still believing in the voter fraud. And so basically what it would probably take for these people to believe in the election results and to honor these election results is if the election were to get overturned. So if the election were to go to the Supreme Court ruled that there was fraudulent ballots being casted, then at this point the people would believe the outcome of the election. So that wraps up basically my entire presentation. Thank you for watching this, and that is about all I've got to say.